When we want to say that something isn't hard, we tend to say it's not rocket science. But many people at NASA would actually tell you that the rocket science part of going to space isn't the hardest part. The hard part, well, it's that humans are, well, human. We recently had astrobiologist Alyssa Carson explain why humans make space travel extra tricky. In Alyssa's own words, it all comes back to the bathroom, as we learned with the very first American astronaut.
Pretty nervous to be the first American ever sent to space. Alan Shepard, he was nervous. Of course he was. So the spacesuits that they put them in, it takes a few hours to strap them into the rocket. So he gets strapped up in the rocket, and to kind of give you an idea, when they're sitting in these rockets, they're laying down on their backs. They got their legs up in the air, they're laying on their backs, and he's just sitting there for hours. He finally realizes, hey, I haven't gone to the bathroom yet today. He just kind of forgot that step. And so he calls mission control. He's like, hey, I gotta go. And they're like, yeah, we know you gotta go. We're glad to hear the excitement. We're glad you're excited to go to space. And he's like, no, I have to go to the bathroom. So they were like, oh, it's too much of a hassle. And so he ended up going to the bathroom in his suit. Then he had the amazing job of being the first astronaut in space. But sadly, one thing to remember is once you get to space, key factor is everything floats in space. So in his spacesuit, all of that floated all up all over him. Quite the mess. He came back, he was a little soggy, but eventually was our first American astronaut. And so we have to be really proud and successful of that.
So I guess that's one more reason that's better to be number one in space than number two, right, Alan Shepard? But the bathroom isn't the only challenge that humans bring to space with us. We get dirty, we need exercise, we need haircuts, and you don't want thousands of strands of hair flying around you at all times in low gravity. Alyssa talks about how the Skylab program, NASA's next main mission after landing on the moon, was all about figuring out how humans could be human in space.
How do you take a shower in space? How do you really go to the bathroom in space? Water in space, when it sticks to you, it sticks to you. So you have to physically brush it off to get it off of your skin. It doesn't just fall off like it does here on Earth. And so Skylab actually, they sent up what we thought, would be a good working shower in space. It had a little curtain to cover you up, and we had a little water hose, and you would squirt some water on your skin, squirt some soap, rub it in, and then we had a little hand vacuum to suck the water off. To brush our teeth, the astronauts have multiple options. We actually send up baby toothpaste for astronauts so they can actually swallow it. It's safe for them to swallow. We've also learned how to cut hair in space, and a lot about exercise in space. Keeping a good exercise routine is really important. And the reason for that is a lot of you are probably just sitting in a chair right now, really relaxed, really cozy, but actually your muscles and your bones are still working very hard. We still have gravity pushing us down all day, every day. And so your muscles and your bones have built up this strength to fight against that so we can feel comfortable. But when we go to space, we no longer have that pressure pushing down on us. So in that sense, your muscles and your bones are like, I don't really need to be as strong. I don't need to work as hard because there's nothing pushing down on me. So our muscles and our bones get weaker. We get weaker when we are in space. And so astronauts typically have to exercise for 1.5 hours to 2 hours every day to keep our muscles active. So of course we had to invent and come up with things that we could do. Obviously you can't do a push-up in space because you aren't using your muscles, you're floating. It's super easy to do that. So we used a lot of resistance bands. We actually came up with our own version of a treadmill to actually strap you down to the treadmill to actually work your muscles and do a lot of good work. And so we had to come up with a lot of this stuff, and that's really the whole point of Skylab was we were trying to figure these things out to make sure astronauts who were living in space were staying healthy.
Of course, it's not just our bodies and need for hygiene and fitness that cause a problem for humans in space. We're also just silly, clumsy creatures, as Alyssa told us with this story from the surface of the moon.
We have had Moon Olympics, so we had a crew have some fun where they wanted to compete to see who could do the best stuff. This was specifically astronaut Charlie Duke. He was convinced he could jump the highest on the moon, so those were the types of competitions they had. So he jumped. Of course, there's still gravity on the moon, just not as much. There's 1/6 the gravity, so his life support, which is right here on his back, is a little bit heavier than he is. So when he was coming down, he leaned backwards, landed on his life support. Luckily, he was fine, but he couldn't get up. He was stuck. His legs were kicking in the air, so he got nicknamed Turtle.
So there you have it. Humans are capable of amazing feats of rocket science, but also capable of all kinds of silly accidents that make the real challenge of human space exploration human-proofing space. Fortunately, lots of brave engineers and astronauts have learned these lessons the hard way, so that someday you'll have a chance to make silly mistakes of your own on Mars.